In an industry stuffed with marketing bullshit, empty promises, and Chinese suited liars, one woman's had enough. She knows what it's like to have the wrong clients, no money, and no time for fun. But she also knows how to fix it. And on the Business for Superheroes show, she promises to tell the down and dirty truth about business, sales, and running away with the circus. Here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Well, hello and welcome to the Business for Superheroes show. I'm Vicky Fraser, and this week I have replaced Joe with Oli Luke. Hi, Oli. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Interesting to replace Joe. Yeah, I'm good. Sorry, it's been one of them days today where I don't know. It's 2 o'clock as we're recording this, and I'm just kind of mentally destroyed already. So I'm sure this will be fun.
Cool. Well, this is going to be a good one. I'll try and throw some left field questions at you. But before we get into the questions, you've been on the podcast before, but for the benefit of those, Philistines that aren't, listening to every single one of my episodes. I know, right? Although people do binge listen to it and they're like, I just listened to like 30 of your episodes in a row. And I'm just like, you're insane. Why would you do that? Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, Oli?
Sure. So for the people who remember the last episode, we spoke about different ways, the leverage points in your marketing, doing the small things that make the big differences. Yeah. And that's kind of what I've been doing. I've kind of been working, I'd like to think at the higher level of marketing. I get to work with some really nice big clients who are happy to spend big money. And I kind of work behind the scenes, building out the strategies and running the marketing. So it's been a massive mix from online to offline to everything in between. So we spend quite a bit of money on ad spend. We send quite a lot of emails. We send quite a lot of direct mail. So I feel like I get to see trends and what's happening before most people. And I've seen quite an alarming trend, which I want to share on this podcast and share the solution that we're putting in place to hopefully stay ahead of the curve before everyone else realizes what's going on.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good place to start. Tell us about this alarming trend and what you're going to do about it.
Yeah, well, it's a strange one because by spending quite a lot on Facebook, on Google, and sending a hell of a lot of emails, the last 18 months especially, things have started being a little bit alarming. So previously, you could set up a Facebook ad, you could get someone to opt in at a relatively good cost. You could then send them a few emails, and for some reason, they'll be really happy to buy from you. And that was a really nice process. And we had a really nice phase for online marketing. And then all of a sudden, Facebook has just started increasing slowly and slowly and slowly. Email open rates and deliverability are dropping very slowly, getting people to even read your emails in such a saturated inbox, getting to stand out in such a saturated inbox, getting someone to then take an action and click through and actually engage with you becomes difficult. And all of a sudden, what used to work is starting to kind of go a little bit backwards, to the point that I honestly believe if you enter the information market and try to sell information now, unless you've got a really strong story, message, hook and angle, then it's going to be really difficult. It's a very saturated place. And a lot of the online marketing that worked even 2 to 3 years ago are becoming really difficult platforms and ways to market. So that's kind of what we've discovered, and it's been a little bit worrying. So we've done something in order to fix that and overcome it. And do you want to dive straight into sharing it?
Yeah, what have you done?
Well, if you really break it down, there's kind of 5 key fundamentals that we need to do in order to overcome this online marketing. We'll call it an online marketing decline. I weren't going to use a hype epidemic or something like that then. And the 5 things are: you want to diversify your communication. So the big issue is at the moment, a lot of businesses only really have one route to build a relationship with their prospects. Generally, it's email marketing. And that's dangerous because everything's pinned on one platform. All it takes is open rates to decline, or Google to make the spam filter a little bit more strict, or GDPR to come in and be actually be something that is enforceable, and that could just absolutely wipe out businesses' communication. The second thing in line with that, you need to be able to control your media. Once again, people using Facebook, people using email. I've had 3 Facebook ad accounts slapped in the last 6 months. Once again, all traffic wiped out overnight. The unpredictability with email is one. You don't control the platform. You're putting the decision of where your business goes in the hands of people in a boardroom somewhere in California, and it's a worrying place to be. Thirdly, you need to find a way to communicate with your audience in a non-competitive space. Everything's become incredibly saturated. Email from any social media platform. Yeah. So if you can kind of get away from them, then it puts you in a good place. Fourth, in line with that, is set yourself apart from the noisy marketplace. It seems that everyone's just making a lot of noise. It's never been easier to market online and get in front of these ideal prospects. And number 5, you need to be perceived as the number 1 expert, go-to person, go-to business in your industry. So you need to do something different to what everyone else is doing. So when you take all them 5 into consideration, I see the only solution is to almost go back to the offline print newsletter. Basically, if we go back through them, diversify your communication. If you start getting people's postal addresses, you find other ways to contact them. Number 2, you're not always relying on Facebook or email. You can control the media. I think the Royal Mail are going to be around for a long time. Hope. You need to find a way to communicate with your audience in a non-competitive space. Once again, I'd rather be coming through the letterbox with 2 other pieces of mail than 120 other emails. You need to stand out and cut through a noisy marketplace. No one sends direct mail. No one sends print publications. And number 5, be perceived as a leading expert or authority, and who sends publications or anything along them lines. It's usually experts or people who have real credibility. So the solution we've started putting in place for our clients is to revert back to the traditional print newsletter and start getting people offline. So be very consistent. A monthly print newsletter, I'll try and call it publication so it doesn't sound cheap. We're sending it free. We're sucking up the cost because we know the people that read this on a monthly basis will massively be more likely to buy from us and actually be fans. Yeah. So this is what we've been putting in place, and it's been interesting. Yeah. And people are loving it. Yeah. And no one else is doing it. And it does require a little bit of work. It's harder work than sending an email. But if you actually fancy being in business for more than 6 months, then it's probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think so. I've always been a big fan of direct mail, as you know. And that's one of the reasons you and I first met each other, because I was just like, oh, who's this dude who does scribble mail? That sounds like really good. I remember talking to you way back when. So I'm really glad it's coming back, because like you say, very few people are doing direct mail and very few people actually think it is worthwhile, don't they? Can you tell us about the little missive you had the other day?
Oh, I always have it. So another business, it's really ironic because another business I'm involved in is a marketing agency which is all digital in the US. So it's a bit contradicting what's happening. So I send a lot. I send a daily email similar to you. And you know, I imagine you like winding people up as much as me. I was just talking about why direct mails are a great thing to do, and I had a reply, you know, the typical ha 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 ha. I'd love to, let me try and dig it out. It was something along the lines of, it would take me so long to dig out in that inbox, saturated inbox. It was something along the lines of, oh, you still sell direct mail, it's 2018, catch up, ha 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 ha, or something along them lines, you know, a typical absolute twonk. And
I have it right here.
There you go. I'd love to hear the message. What did it say? What was the reply?
There were many ha's, ha 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 ha, 2 exclamation points, which is one of my pet hates. It's 2018 and you're still trying to sell direct mail. Catch up, Mr. Marketer.
Love it. I love it. And I left him on the email list and then sent his screenshot to everyone and called him out as a prick. So he hasn't replied.
Has he not?
Ironically, I haven't checked if he's unsubscribed either. Hopefully he has.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. It's good because I hope that everyone else in the UK, every other business thinks direct mail is not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Because that's a massive benefit. Because I'd love to be the only print newsletter, be the only publication, be the only interesting piece of direct mail to land through a prospect's door. So yeah, direct mail's so underutilized, and
It is.
it's perceived as a lot of work, but it actually isn't.
No, it's not. You can kind of standardize it, and what tips have you got? Because I'm always telling my people, get yourself a print newsletter, get yourself do direct mail, do all the other stuff as well, but do direct mail. But I think part of the problem is that people are like, oh, it's going to be really expensive, or it's going to be a lot of work. So what advice have you got for people who think it's going to be a lot of work?
Just outsource everything. So basically, I send a print newsletter. I spend half a morning sat in Costa Coffee writing it. I then send the copy to be proofread, which then goes to a designer. I get the proof back. That looks okay, and then it's done. Then it goes off to be put print and fulfilled. So for me, really, it's not much more work than sending an email. It's writing a copy and then just checking it over when it's all formatted. So it's not a lot of work if you just partner with someone who's a half decent designer, and it doesn't even have to be well designed. And then there's so many.
You're a designer, Ollie. I design my own design, and it's like, I should go much more basic. See, mine's actually that's a copy. Oh, cool. So if you're watching, if you're listening to this on the podcast, we've also got the video up on YouTube, and you can go and have a look at what Ollie's showing us right now.
There we go. So I'm trying to be somewhat interesting with this. So the main headline is Hitler, ISIS, and print newsletters, and then the back. And then the back is why Instagram entrepreneurs are as believable as religion. So I'm trying to have a little bit of fun with it. But yeah, it goes down well, but it's a little bit over-designed. But I can't help that.
It looked pretty simple and clean to me. It looked
yeah, that's true. I'm quite happy with it. And it's a free newsletter, and it costs me, it's all in all, it's cost me about £2.40 to get in someone's hands every month.
Okay,
so that's not calculating my cost of coffee. Yeah. Or the morning I've spent in there, but I can kind of suck that up.
So that's a really good point. I was going to ask you how much it is. So that's basically about £2.40 to get that into somebody's hands every month.
To get it printed, designed, and into someone's hands every month.
Which is not a lot of money to spend on it's like buying a really highly qualified lead.
Completely, and I'm spending £30 a year in order to really turn what is someone who's shown an interest to put their hand up into someone who's going to be very well primed to be a customer. Yeah. And what a little cost in the grand scheme of things. Literally, I need 1 in 100 people to decide that they should work with me at some way, and it's paid for exercise.
Yeah, exactly. So how are you qualifying these people? Because I noticed that you're not just like blanket sending it out to a bazillion people who may or may not be interested. How are you getting these people in the first place?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's come from my email, from the email marketing that I do. So I've basically said it's quite simple. If you're interested, go to this page, fill out this survey, and then fill in a form. And there's a couple of survey questions, which let me have a look what they are. They're a little bit stupid. Sorry for the delay in time.
While you're looking for it, I can tell people how I got people onto my print newsletter.
Go for it.
Which is when I wrote my first book, when people bought the book, the option then, well, it wasn't even an option. It was just, I'm sorry, you're stuck with this newsletter as well. It was basically like, as a bonus, you also get membership of the Business for Superheroes Club, and you get this free newsletter once a month and all the rest of it. So that worked really well for me. It was like very highly qualified people because they'd already bought my book. They'd already spent 20 quid on my book. So, these were people who had already opened their wallets. So that's another really, really good way. I'm going to do it. I've lapsed my newsletter because reasons. So as soon as I've written my next book, which is not far off being finished, I'll start it up again in a slightly different guise.
Perfect. Yeah, the barrier's really low for people to request it from me. I know that what I'm spending on this will pay for itself many times over. So I'm quite happy for 30% of the people to be the wrong fit. But I just asked a couple of simple questions. Is, do you currently send direct mail? Mm-hmm. And then the second one, which is I've added recently, is, what are you planning on doing this? And it's like, read it cover to cover, or I'm planning on ripping it apart and using it for roaches or something along them lines. And then it's fill out the details. So it's quite, anyone can kind of join it, and I'm not kind of putting too many barriers up. Yeah. And then on the back of every one, it's if this has offended you, if anything I've said has upset you, annoyed you, or made you want to unsubscribe from receiving this publication, then firstly, stop being a fucking baby. But secondly, email this email address to be removed. So we're having a bit of fun. But yeah,
Cool.
I'm quite looking forward to getting that. I'd love to have a few thousand people on this every month, rather than subscribing to emails. So that's the main route now.
Cool. Can you give us an idea of what's in the newsletter as well? Because I know some people will be listening to this and thinking, oh, what can I possibly say to fill a newsletter? You know, how many pages have you got in your newsletter, and what do you fill it with?
Yeah, so it's an 8-page newsletter. So it's two A3 pieces folded and printed. What does it? So basically, there's 3 main articles, 3 double-page articles. There's a Q&A part, which is a load of questions that I've made up to ask myself to make myself sound way more intelligent than I am. And then there's a bit about ways to work with me. So almost getting people to ascend up. Here's the next step. Here's the next step. And what else have I got? And then I've got a rant on the back, like my monthly rant. And so it's what can you put in your newsletter? You can put anything from.
I love the Q&A idea, because I know that you said you were bringing them up, but if you get other people to ask you questions, and they've just written half your newsletter for you, right? Completely.
The best way is interview a client, because then you just transcribe it and it's written 2 pages already for you.
Yeah.
Or you can, depending on your industry, you could swipe someone else's article and then credit them with it, saying, here's what this expert said, who's not directly a competitor with you, but could benefit the reader. Yeah. But realistically, it's not that difficult to write a few articles, whether you transcribe them. Completely, yeah, repurpose stuff. Technically, could this podcast interview be transcribed and made into a double-page article? A little bit of editing?
All of my podcasts could be.
There we go. So
in fact, my assistant transcribes all my podcasts for me, so I could just pull all of that stuff. So
technically, yeah, you could just put the podcast interviews into a tidied up fashion and send them as a print newsletter. Yeah. Everyone's got a load of content lying around, which they just don't see as content, which is whether it's an audio, a video, or even a combination of emails they've sent out with a little bit of tidying and polishing could be turned into newsletter content. But yeah, I just jot down ideas throughout the month, and then when I sit down, it's very easy to write.
Awesome. So with your how to work with me bit, how do you structure that? Is it like a proper salesy piece, or is it a gentle sell, or is it, you know, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's a gentle sell. It's basically letting people know what the next step is. Bang, bang, bang. Here's the elite. Here's what. I may as well show you. That'd be easier. So sorry for podcast listeners, but I've got there's like 3 different ways. So different ways to work with me. The next step, which is to join a coaching program or get the done for you option, or then have me build a campaign for you, all at different price points, kind of working their way up. So it's just subtly to let people know. I find a lot of people in the kind of industry we're in, Vicky, is a lot of people don't really know what you do, like how they can actually give you money. Yeah. Because we just send emails, entertain people, and make people like us, but then they get a little bit confused to what we actually do. So just giving people more an understanding of what they can give us money for is a beneficial thing to do.
That's a really good point, actually, because one of the things that I've found is that people always want more of me than I've given them so far, and I often don't realize that, because like you say, we don't tell people how they can work with us, and it's just like, then after a while you'll find out, I really would have liked to have done this, and I'm just like, face palm, why did I not, so that's a really good really good tip. Okay, so we are running out of time a little bit, but just before we go, I also wanted to touch on more traditional direct mail, the kind of direct mail campaigns. And I just wondered what tips you have for people who are thinking, I'd really like to send a direct mail campaign, a traditional kind of sales campaign, but I'm not really sure where to start. What would you say to them?
So we're talking a traditional sales letter route, or are we talking?
Yeah, say they've got a product to sell. It could be a training course or whatever. They've got a list of people, and they're thinking, okay, well, I could send some emails. I will send some emails, but I'd really like to make more of an impact and like get in front of their faces.
Excellent. So really a simple strategy, if you've got people on your email list, for example, I find a lot of businesses don't actually have postal information. They just have email leads. So a really simple thing you can do is send an email out to your audience and say, if you're looking for help with X, Y, and Z, or if you want X, Y, and Z, then I'd love to send you something in the post. Just fill in this form to give me your postal details. Then the only people that fill them in are actually somehow qualified or have an interest in working with you. So instantly what you're planning on spending on direct mail minimizes. And then send them a sales letter in the post. it's as simple as writing a sales letter and pressing the print button. It doesn't have to be overdone. Just getting that in their hands so they can read something away from a distracting screen and actually give you attention is a good thing to do. If we want to go high level and you're spending big money on direct mail and you want to make sure it gets open and read, and then there's lots of little strategies from sending it in handwritten envelopes, the traditional handwritten envelopes, rather than pressing the print button or giving it to a fulfillment company to send in cheap envelopes and with cheap franking stamps on and trying to minimize price. If you're selling something of value and you're sending it to people where if 20% of them, more people opened it, then you've got a much higher chance of making much more money. Then it's well worth doing it with a real stamp in a handwritten envelope, maybe even a coloured envelope, and going to town with it.
Love a coloured envelope. All of my stuff goes out in coloured envelopes.
Yeah, I'm a geek for coloured envelopes.
Yeah, I'm quite excited actually, because when I've got my new book, it's all about standing out, and the kind of the idea is how to be a flamingo at a penguin party kind of thing. So all of my envelopes are going to be like hot pink, and it's going to be amazing.
Brilliant. Sounds good.
It is going to be good. Okay, cool. Oli, this has been really, really good. I always love talking to you because you've always got loads of clever things to say. Where can people sign up for this print newsletter of yours?
Yeah, that's a good thing to do. At my website, which is oliluke.com, which is spelled Oli as in the right way, which is OLI and not overly fancy. Oliluke.com, 2 first names kind of child. And then you'll see it on the form. Go for the survey. Make sure you're not going to use it for marijuana purposes, and fill out your details, and I'll get one in the post to you.
Awesome, thank you. That's oliluke.com, and that link will be in the show notes for people. Really recommend that you sign up for Oli's newsletter, because he really does know what he's been doing direct mail for so much longer than he looks like he should have been, because he looks like he's very, very young, which he is, which is annoying.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Oli. That's been really, really good. Go to oliluke.com, sign up for his print newsletter, sign up for his email newsletters as well, because they are always entertaining. I read them most days. Occasionally even reply to them. Thanks for listening. Joe will be back next week. What else have I got to say? Join my book club, Bookaholics Anonymous, which is vickyfraser.com/book club. It's free. What else? Share this podcast. Go to vickyfraser.com/podcast and send it to your friends and reviewers on iTunes and all of that good stuff. And basically all that's left to say is thank you very much, Oli. Really appreciate that. And we'll be back next week.
Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
Like what you've just heard? Tell your colleagues, tell your friends, send them to www.businessforsuperheroes.com/podcast.